yeah, just out, hot off the press. And just to say, it's been a kind of wonderful 5x15 session. I've been with you a couple of times before. This is the first time I've done it from the kind of my down at heel lockdown Barrett home. But just to say, yeah, this is it's another non-fiction thriller. It follows on from Collusion, and Shadow State is really my attempt to tell the story of our kind of troubled times. And obviously it's about Vladimir Putin, it's about Donald Trump, it's about espionage, murder, Novichok. And I guess what I'd say is that the big picture is that Russia has really in recent years been kind of playing an outsized role, a role which is disproportionate to its real size and influence. And essentially it's a kind of KGB regime led by Vladimir Putin, who sees Moscow in a state of permanent semi-war, I would say, or quasi-war with the West, in particular with America, with the UK, and he's been spectacularly effective in recent years. We've had major operations in America to help Donald Trump win, also in this country around Brexit. And I think what's interesting, what's striking, what I try and tell in a kind of exciting narrative way in my book is how this is actually the sort of Soviet playbook updated. I mean, what the KGB tried to do with very often not much success during the Cold War is to undermine Western democracies, to kind of corrode them from inside. And what Putin has done is take this sort of adversarial concept and update it for the age of Facebook and Twitter and social media and the digital world. And he's done it very, very effectively. It's this kind of hybrid of old stuff and new stuff. Now the old stuff we know about. It's been overwhelmingly in the headlines. If you go back 2 years, we had the attack by two rather hapless GRU Russian military assassins against Sergei Skripal, who was a kind of hated defector in Salisbury, which didn't work and was both darkly comedic, but also ultimately, I think, very chilling, with a message to Britain, which was kind of up yours, and also a message to people inside Moscow and its spy agencies who are thinking about cooperating with MI6 or the CIA. And that message was that we don't forgive, we don't forget, and while you're enjoying your new life in Wiltshire or Florida or whatever, we will come and we will smash you with a mighty fist when you're least expecting it. So we have these theatrical, exotic, terrible, sort of Websterian revenge plots. We also saw that with Alexander Litvinenko, about whom I wrote an earlier book, A Very Expensive Poison, which some of you may have seen. It was adapted as a play for the Old Vic last autumn before lockdown. But then we have all of the kind of contemporary stuff. So we know that there were Facebook Russian trolls pumping out pro-Donald Trump messages. The same with Brexit as well, that there's a whole kind of factory of professional salaried bots sitting in St. Petersburg, pretending to be UKIP supporters, pretending to be Americans, while actually kind of following a script. And this is really very sinister, the way in which our democracy has been corroded. And what I try and do is I try and tell the story, give a definitive version of what happened with Donald Trump in 2016. Answer there was sweeping and systematic Russian interference to help him win. And I expect there will be again in the autumn. But kind of conjoined with that was a sort of parallel operation to push Brexit. And there's a clear sort of geopolitical strategic reason for that, which is that Vladimir Putin hates the European Union. He likes the idea of anything which disintegrates or weakens Britain, whom he regards as a kind of foe. And in communist times, Red Moscow sort of supported leftist political parties in Italy, France, places like that. And now the Putin vector is the far right. It's the kind of nationalist far right. And we know that there were multiple meetings between Aaron Banks, biggest donor in British political history, who gave £8.5 million to leave EU, and the Russian ambassador, Alexander Yakovenko. I kind of sketched that in a chapter called Moscow Gold. And what the Russians did, similar to the eternal hotel offer being dangled in front of Donald Trump's nose all the time for years, was offer banks gold, a gold deal in Siberia, and then diamonds, and then more gold, and so on. And it was clear that they were trying to kind of incentivize him. And I think what we can say about Russia and Brexit is that as a minimum, there was quite a sophisticated and extensive espionage operation to push Brexit, which doesn't mean that it was determinant, but it was definitely there. But also, I think, I mean, Arron Banks has been clear by the National Crime Agency, we have to say that, but I also think there are still questions about the financing of the Leave campaign. It's all very opaque. A lot of it is rooted offshore. And I think there's another sort of substantial point, which is that in America, we've had Robert Mueller, the special prosecutor, who only this weekend was attacking Trump's decision to pardon Roger Stone, even though he lied to Congress. But the Mueller report was a bit of a letdown, but it was at least an attempt to interrogate what happened 4 years ago. Now, in this country, we have had zero, well, almost zero. We've had the Russia report by Parliament's Intelligence and Security Committee, but of course, we haven't seen it. Boris Johnson suppressed it before the last election. We don't know what it says. I suspect we may get it at the end of this week or next week, and it'll be probably a little bit disappointing and more discursive than kind of explosive. But the point is that this kind of Kremlin money that we saw in America has also been distorting and affecting our politics. That there are literally millions of pounds which have flown from Moscow-linked donors into the Conservative Party, and there is also something very curious going on between Boris Johnson and the Lebedevs. Now, I'm not suggesting any wrongdoing, but Alexander Lebedev, owner of the Evening Standard newspaper, together with his son Yevgeny, has hosted Boris Johnson on several occasions at his Italian palazzo. One trip a couple of years ago where Johnson flew in, left his security detail behind. He was foreign secretary, a little bit odd. And then, of course, the day after he wins an election in December, the first thing that Johnson does on a very historic day was to go to Alexander Lebedev's 60th birthday party in a rather wonderful cream stucco mansion overlooking Regent's Park. So I think this is curious. And one person I write a lot about, I interview in the book, is called Christopher Steele. He's probably the most famous MI6 spy since James Bond. He wrote the notorious Trump-Russia dossier. And I got hold of his evidence to the ISC, the Intelligence and Security Committee, where he says that essentially he thinks, he basically warned the spooks and warned government in late 2016 that Donald Trump may well be compromised by the Russians. And instead of investigating as you would wish, the then government of Theresa May and Johnson kind of threw a blanket over all of this for clearly political reasons, because they didn't want to offend Donald Trump and jeopardize a post-Brexit trade deal. Now, one thing I'm always asked, and I'll say it very briefly because I've only got 3 minutes left, is there a tape? This is Steele's most famous allegation, that Donald Trump in 2013 was filmed frolicking with 2 prostitutes in the presidential suite of the Ritz-Carlton hotel. To which all I can say is, yeah. I mean, the Russians, the KGB, collected compromise on Donald Trump in the 1980s during his first visit to Soviet Moscow in 1987. And I know from bitter, ghoulish personal experience, when I was in Moscow as a correspondent between 2007 and 2011, the FSB, Putin's spy agency, broke into the family apartment where I was living with my wife and then 2 rather small children. They left a series of ridiculous clues all over the place, and to show that they'd been in, it was all demonstrative. And I talked to the British embassy in Moscow and took some advice from them, and they said, yeah, you're bugged. And I said, well, what about the bedroom? And they said, also the bedroom. And then I said, well, can you guys do anything about it? And they said, no, I'm afraid we can't. So my point is that if the KGB FSB would spy on me, a scruffy, disheveled British investigative journalist, of course they would record Donald Trump. And so what they have precisely, we don't know, but Putin knows, and Trump knows that Putin knows. And Putin is using this in their relationship, in their secret bilateral chats in Helsinki and elsewhere, not to beat Donald Trump or blackmail him, but it's there in the background while Vladimir Putin says, you know, Donald, I am your best friend, I am a rock, I will stand by you. You're surrounded by opprobrious liberals and people who watch 5 by 15, but I will be your friend. So we're in a kind of curious and dangerous place, I think, with Putin staying in power, and it looks like for another decade or two. We can expect more misadventures, we can expect more assassins, we can expect the Russians certainly to try and meddle in America's election in 2020. And I would just say, by way of closing, that I mean, I've written, I think Shadow State, here it is again, is I think it's my 7th nonfiction book, and it seems to me, with not disrespecting all of the novelists out there, that this is very much a moment for non-fiction, because our times are so troubled, they're so disordered, they're so darkly twisting and frankly surreal and Gogolian. Why make things up? You can tell true stories in a compelling and captivating way, whether it's via the kind of wonderful drama that Fiona Shaw does, or the books that everyone else is talking about this evening. But I think nonfiction is where it's at. Thank you.